Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. And to the bill sponsor, thanks for bringing this topic up for discussion because it's a very real and important item that deserves our attention. I've been circling around this issue as it relates to truth and justice and truth in policing for a very long time. And when I think about my own children, and I think about my grandchildren, and I think about the title of this bill, which is Deceptive Tactics when a juvenile is in custody and the interrogation approach, it causes me to ponder a little bit. And the reason I ponder about this topic is because it's not equitable. It's not equal. There's a difference between equity and equality. And the reason I say that is because when you see a police officer in a uniform, they kind of command a certain level of respect. I know when I see the police when I'm driving, the first thing I try to do is I look at how fast I'm going. And oftentimes, I will slow down. In case you're confused,
Senator Fields,
I am in support of this amendment 023.
013.
013?
013.
I'm in support of this amendment. And let me explain why. Because it's not equal. And I believe that law enforcement does need to have training as it relates to understanding how to interrogate a youth or a juvenile. Because if you just make a blanket statement and just say, go do it, your perception of how to do it in Grand Junction or in Vail or in Telluride or somewhere else might be different. I believe in having standards. I don't want to have this decoupage or potpourri where everyone gets to approach what they believe is a deceptive practice into place. I want to see our law enforcement officers set up for success and not for failure. So basically what that means is we need to have some standards and some objectives in mind when you're dealing with the youth and you're interrogating them. I don't see anything wrong with that. Because we know in those kinds of situations, it's not 50-50. Because in law enforcement, it is an adult-centered approach. And most of the time, the adult has the authority in that room. And there needs to be some acknowledgement of the authority that that law enforcement officer brings into that interrogation room. The dynamics. And when you think about the dynamics, it could be associated with trauma as it relates to how they have experienced the police as a young child or maybe through their parents or whatever. They're bringing in those kinds of feelings, and who knows what is said or how it's going to be approached. But it's not a 50-50 even Steven type of approach. And law enforcement needs to acknowledge that, and they need to make some adjustments and recalibrate their approach when they're dealing with juveniles. Because oftentimes they might not know what they're saying, the long-term impact that might have on their life, on their family's life. Now, when you go through law enforcement training, and I've been around state patrol training as well as the Aurora Police Department, they give you training on how to de-escalate. They give you training on how to use your gun. They give you training on traffic control. They give you training as it relates to first aid, and the list goes on and on and on. I was down here when a law was introduced, and it did pass, and it was signed by the governor. And it was a bill in reference to how to interact with dogs, because we had scenarios where the dog was shot. And it was like mandatory training that law enforcement had to do to enact with the dog. We're talking about children here, and I did ask the question in reference to the range of what we're talking about, and I got I don't know. I don't know if it's 17, 18, down to 5, 6, 12. I'm not quite sure if we're talking about kids or children or youth. But what is clear to me is that we need to have a uniform interpretation of the law as it relates to interrogating our youth. I heard some discussions about all that we've done down here under the Golden Dome as it relates to policing and police reform. We've done a lot, and I think that we should be proud of the work that we do and the work that we have done. Those bills have been passed, and they're in the rearview mirror right now. But I think about when we talk about the truth in policing, if we want to have trust in policing, then we need to make sure that everyone is approaching with the same standards. And we're not leaving it up for anyone else's interpretation. We need to have objectives, like you have in most training, where you know what the outcome is, that you understand what cultural sensitivity is like when you're interrogating maybe someone of color or someone with a disability. We've even passed laws down here based on incidents that have happened in Denver when they're dealing with youth, kids, adults, or what have you, that are challenged with behavioral health disorders. Members, I'm asking for your support on this amendment.